In this video, we're going to take a look at how we can export textures from Substance Painter, and I'm also going to go over the new changes we've made to our export dialog. Let's take a look by going here to File and choosing Export Textures. You'll notice that we have this new Export Textures dialog. Now we have three tabs: Settings, Output Templates, and List of Exports. Let's come over to the Settings tab and take a look at our global settings. Here we have our general export parameters, and we can make changes to things like our output directory. In my case here, I'm just going to click the R button to reset that. Here we can choose an output template. Now, if I click this drop down, you can see that we have the options for all of the output templates that we ship with, as well as any custom templates you've created on your own. In my case here, I'm going to set this to PBR metallic roughness. Now I can set a file type, and I'm doing so here for my general export parameter. I'm going to leave this to PNG, but if I wanted to, I could choose a different bit depth. In my case though, I'm going to leave everything pretty much here at default, and I'm going to rely on our new override feature to make specific changes to outputs. Speaking of, we can now come over here to our texture sets. In my case, I'm going to choose cabinet, and now I can take a look at these output maps. Now you'll notice that we have general export parameters once again, and I can actually override things like my output template, the file type, size, and padding by just simply clicking this pencil button. So for example, for my texture set of cabinet, if I wanted to use a different texture format, I could do so here by clicking the pencil to enable the override, and then choosing something like TIFF or Targa. You can see that my output maps have all changed to be TIFF. And that's because I've overridden my file type for my general export parameters in relation to my cabinet texture set. Okay, so let's disable this, and let's take a look at another scenario where I can actually override values for a specific output map. Now over here we have this button, and if I click this, you can do things like enable an override for all items. In my case though, like I said, let's disable all overrides, and I'm going to do this manually for a specific channel. Let's take a look at my roughness. I'm going to click the pencil icon to enable an override, and I'm going to leave this at PNG, but in my case, I'm going to set my bit depth to 16-bit. Also for my normal, let's enable this, and let's make sure that our normal is going to export out at 16-bit. And while we're there, let's go ahead and make sure that our height exports out at 16-bit as well. So now you can see that I've overridden some of those base export values to specifically match the type of export that I want to do. Now I can click Save Settings here, which is going to close the Export Textures dialog. And if I come back to export at any other time in my session, so File, Export Textures, you can see that my overrides are still enabled and ready for me to use. I also have an indicator here that lets me know that 18 textures are selected for export. So this gives me an idea of knowing what type of exports I'm going to have. And here, if I come over to my list of exports, I can get a further snapshot of everything. I can look at each texture set and I can see the display of outputs. Here we can see that my normal, height, and roughness are being overridden to use this 16-bit output. Now, if we jump back over here to our output templates, you'll see that we've updated several of our presets. Again, you can always make your own custom presets if you like. But one of the new specific things that we've added was the capability to change the format as well as the bit depth specifically on one of your presets. So for example, let's come over here and let's take a look at, let's say, our redshift material. Now you'll notice here for, let's say, my normal, I can come over now to this texture output and I can override this to include 16 bits as well as the capability to come in and change my format. And I can do this specifically on each output for any of my output templates that I'm creating. This again allows me to set up a configuration that I don't have to constantly worry about overriding for specific values. Here you can see that I have clicked the Export button to export my textures. We now have a console window that appears and outputs the status of the export. You can then click the Open Output Directory button to see the exported textures. So this has been a quick look at the new Export Textures dialog. The override feature, as we've showcased here, allows you to create your own custom configuration so that you're getting the exact export that you need for your given project.